A few years ago, a cosmetic company sponsored a promotion in which they encouraged people to submit pictures and letters about the most beautiful women they knew. And of course, thousands of letters poured in. But one particular letter captured a lot of attention. So much attention that it was shown to the president of the company. You see, this boy, he was from a broken home, staying only with his father and living in an old, run-down neighborhood. Writing about the woman, he said, "A beautiful woman lives down the street from me. I visit her every day. She makes me feel like the most important kid in the world. We play checkers and she listens to my problems. She understands me. And when I leave, she yells out the door and says that she's proud of me." He enclosed a picture and wrote, "This picture shows you that she is the most beautiful woman in the world." Intrigued, the president said, "Well, let me see this picture." So the secretary fished out the picture, and on that picture was a smiling, toothless woman, well advanced in her years, sitting in a wheelchair. Her sparse gray hair was pulled back into a neat little bun, and the wrinkles on her face seemed to fade away beneath the wrinkle or the twinkle in her eyes. Smiling, the president said, "We can't use this entry. It would show the world that our products aren't necessary to be beautiful." I have to say that the kid was right. There's a beauty and attractiveness that's completely unrelated to physical appearance. There's a kindness and a gentleness and a concern, a love that can be seen and experienced in lives all around us. One reader of Dear Anne wrote Ann Landers and said, "Dear Anne, I'm a 46-year-old woman, divorced with 3 grown kids, and after several months of chemotherapy following a mastectomy for breast cancer, I was finally starting to put my life together. When I got a call from the doctor with the results from my last checkup, they found more cancer. I was devastated. My relatives had not been very supportive. I was the first person in my family to have cancer, and they didn't know how to behave toward me or around me. They tried to be kind, but I had a feeling that they were afraid that it was contagious. They called me on the phone to see how I was doing, but always kept their distance, and that really hurt." She goes on to write, "Last Saturday, I headed for the laundromat. You see the same people almost every week. We exchange greetings and make a small talk. So I pulled into the parking lot and determined not to look depressed, but my spirits were really low. While taking my laundry out of the car, I looked up and saw a man, one of the regulars, leaving with a bundle. He smiled and said, 'Good morning, how are you today?' Suddenly, I lost control and blurted out, 'This is the worst day of my life. I have more cancer,' and I began to cry. But he walked over and put his arms around me and just let me sob and said, 'I understand. My wife has been through it too.' After a few minutes, I felt better, stammered out my thanks, and proceeded to do my laundry. After a few minutes, 15 or so, he came back, this time with his wife. Without saying a word, she just walked over and hugged me and said, 'I've been there too. Feel free to talk to me, and I know what you're going through.' And I can't tell you how much that meant to me. Here was this total stranger taking her time to give me emotional support and courage to face the future at a time when I was ready just to give up. Oh, I hope God gives me a chance to do for someone else what this wonderful woman and husband did for me. Meanwhile, Anne, please let your readers know that even though there's a lot of hard-hearted people in the world, there are some incredibly generous and loving ones too. There are a lot of people out there, different kinds of people out there. So the writer of Ephesians wrote these words in his letter to the Ephesians. He said, "Do not use harmful words, but only helpful words, the kind that build up and provide what is needed so that what you say will do good for those who hear you. Get rid of all the bitterness, passion, and anger. No more shouting or insults, being angry with your neighbors. No more hateful feelings of any sort." All of us see angry people in our lives every day. They're angry at the world because it hasn't given them enough. They're angry at God because they think He hasn't treated them fairly. Angry at their spouses because the marriage that they're in is not what they expected it to be. Angry at their children, angry at their neighbors, angry at their job. They're all just angry. So in today's reading, it gives us a survival message, and it says, if you want to make it, you can't live like that because it's going to eat you alive. But the writer doesn't leave us with that. He gives us an antidote. To get rid of the hostility and anger, your unwholesome words, you have to do something. You have to be kind, tender-hearted to one another. Forgive one another. As it says, because God has forgiven you. So the three essential ingredients to rid your life of that hostility and anger in your own life, because no one's immune to it. You have to be kind. You have to be tender-hearted. That means being compassionate. And you have to forgive. See, kindness today is almost a lost art. So many people are rude and self-centered and worried about nothing else other than themselves. They're not worried very much about others. In Titus, it tells us, "For we ourselves were once foolish, disobedient, and wrong. We were slaves to passions and pleasures of all kinds. We spent our lives in malice and envy. Others hated us, and we hated them. We hated them back." Does that sound familiar? Because, see, the writer included himself in that. Others hated us, and we hated them. But see, it doesn't leave it at that. He says, "But when the kindness and love of God was revealed, He saved us. It was not because of any good deeds we ourselves had done, but because of His mercy that saved us." It's only because of God's kindness toward us and mercy that He saved us. If God reacted to us the way we react to one another, He would have washed us out a long time ago. But instead, He reached out. He strives for that relationship with us. There was a missionary returning from several years in the jungles of New Guinea. Someone asked, "Well, what was it like? Tell us what you found there." He looked at her, very puzzled, and said, I found a mission field that looked more hopeless than if I had been sent into a jungle filled with tigers." "Well, what do you mean?" "The people there were so fierce and degraded that they seemed utterly devoid of moral sense. If a mother were carrying her baby and the baby was crying too much and wouldn't stop, she would simply just throw it in a ditch and let it die. If a man saw his father break his leg, He would just leave him there to suffer by himself. They had no compassion, the missionary went on. They didn't even know what the word meant. The inquiring mind said, well, what were you able to do? Did you preach to them? He replied, no, at first I thought it better just to show my faith. Show them what it meant. So when I saw a baby crying, I picked it up and I consoled it. When I saw a man with a broken leg, I sought to mend it. When I found people distressed and hungry, I took them in, comforted them, and fed them. And finally they began to ask, well, what does this all mean? Why are you doing this? And that's when I told them about Jesus. And many of them came to know and love him as much as I did. See, so we should be kind to one another. Because God's kind to us. People notice. But we're not just called to be kind. We're called to be compassionate. That word simply means that your feelings kind of become a part of my life. And I begin to share and understand what you feel. And what's going inside of you. There was a 10-year-old Jewish boy in Poland during World War II. For generations, his family had lived in this same village. But one day the SS came and rounded up all the Jews for execution. They were lined up. They had to dig the ditch. And then they were gunned down. The impact of the bullets knocked their bodies down into the ditch. And the Nazis shoveled dirt on top of them. But none of the bullets hit this little boy. Splattered with the blood of his parents, when they fell, he fell with them, pretending to be dead. The layer of dirt that was shoveled upon their bodies was so thin that it didn't even prevent the air from getting to him, so he could still breathe. Soon, the Nazis left. And when darkness fell, several hours later, this young 10-year-old boy clawed his way out of the grave that he dug for himself. With blood and dirt caked all over his little body, he made his way to the nearest house and begged for help. Recognizing him as one of the Jewish boys marked for death, the woman that answered the door screamed and made him go away and slammed the door in his face. He was turned away at the next door and the one after that. In each case, their fear overpowered any feelings of compassion that they might have. Dirty, bloody, and shivering, the little boy went on. Then something inside him guided to say something very strange for a Jewish boy. When the next family he approached opened the door, he simply cried out, "Don't you recognize me? I'm the Jesus that you say you love." After a startled pause, the woman at the door swept him into his arms and kissed him. And from that day on, the family cared for him as one of their very own. And that was a true story. We need to be kind and compassionate to one another. Because remember, Christ told us in Matthew, whatever you did to these, you did to me. Don't you recognize me? I'm the Jesus that you say you love. That's when it starts. In a family torn by dissension and argument, be kind and compassionate to one another. In a business where the general rules seem to be dog eat dog, be kind and compassionate to one another. In a community and a nation where one race is pitted against another and tolerance is derided, be kind and compassionate. In a world that is torn by a deep and long-standing hatred that never seems to be lessened. Be kind and compassionate to one another. See, we long for peace, a real peace, an everlasting peace. But I'm convinced there's no such peace as long as the Prince of Peace is ignored and unknown, even to the church. But see, that's not all. We can't just be kind and compassionate with one another. The writer says that we have to be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other. So that third item in that survival message is that we have to forgive each other. And the writer had a reason to put that in there. I don't think we can really forgive someone until we have learned to be kind and compassionate toward them. It's a logical step in that course. The wife of an African tribal chief happened to attend a meeting of Christians, and she heard about Jesus for the very first time in her life. The message of a God who loves us, forgives us, was something new and wonderful for her to consider. She'd never heard of such a God. And it wasn't long before she herself became a follower of this Jesus. When her husband learned that she had converted, he became very angry with her and forbade her on pain of death to ever attend another Christian meeting. However, eager to learn more about Jesus, she dared to go. And when her husband found out what she had done, he met her on the trail on her way back. He beat her so savagely that he left her there for dead. A few hours later, he goes back to check on her out of curiosity. And when he went back to look for her, she wasn't there. She wasn't on the trail. She had crawled her way off the trail, and he followed the broken twigs and signs that indicated where she had gone. Following them, he finally found her laying under a bush. Cruelly, he asked, "And just what is your Jesus doing for you now?" She opened up her eyes, looking at him, and gently said, "He's helping me to forgive you." So we have to be kind, compassionate, and forgiving, even in the toughest of times, even when the cards are stacked against us. I wonder what would happen if we can be like that today. If we could take those words instead of just listening, but if we can take those words and put them into action. I wonder this afternoon if someone here needs the kindness of God, if they need that tender touch again. In my experience, God understands us. He understands right where you are. And He knows what you think before you even think it. He knows your worries, your concerns, your disappointments, and your joys. And He's anxious to forgive and forget all of your failures. So today, I offer you His invitation, because I know that God waits for all of us to see what you will do with His love. So as we leave today, I challenge you to be kind, be compassionate, and be forgiving. Amen.